Hi everyone, I'm Mary Sharizzi Welsh with QCS, and so way back when I was a youngster in '86, and here with Joyce again. Joyce, what year did you join?
I joined the second year of the chorus. I can't remember what year it was, but
Must have been maybe '84. And
I
of course, introducing, no introduction necessary, our former maestro John Nichols and his wife Jodi. And John was with us for 29 years, John?
28.
I always get those.
Who's counting?
Who's counting? After, 15, 20 or so, you definitely lose count. It's kind of like the year we were born, right? So,
Mary, before we start, I got to do something. I'll be here. Can you get this on the camera? I need to pull up my sock.
Most rehearsals began with the showing of the David Crazy socks.
And the label on your shirt. As you stood up, we could see it.
Oh, little QCS swag. All right. If we're showing off our swag, yes, coffee mug today, keeping me going.
This is one I do not want to show off, but Dwight and Christy sent us masks, QCS masks.
Very good. A sign of the times.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yes, exactly. But a good thing to have, a good swag mask. So, John, way back in '88 or '89 when you joined the chorus, I was there, and I believe we were probably maybe 35 people strong or so, with maybe 2 or 3 tenors at best. And you came in and wrangled us into quite an amazing, internationally renowned chorus. Tell us how you did it.
Well, you can't push people into doing something. You have to lead them into wanting to become a good group. And I remember back then Joyce saying, "Nobody knows who we are."
Right.
And that was something that always stuck with me as I was building up QCS, taking QCS into the community, doing senior center concerts, caroling, doing the Quincy Historical Society, the Feast of Lights at Sacred Heart, getting us out into the community so that people started to know who we were. And one of our first big breaks, I would call it, is that in 1995, we were approached by the managers of the South Shore Plaza. They had just completed renovating the South Shore Plaza, and they needed a group at Christmas time to kick off the big dedication. So Martha McMahon, the president at the time, called me up and said, "We have an invite. Let's go into Boston and see what this is all about." So we went into Boston and went up to the 34th floor of some innocuous building, met the people who were running the organization, and they said, "We'd like to hire you to open in the South Shore Plaza dedication. How much would you charge?" And Martha and I just kind of looked at each other, and before we could say anything, the organizer said, "Would $1,000 be enough?" And we shook our heads and said, "Yes, that'd probably be okay." So we left the meeting, got back onto the elevator, the doors closed, and Martha and I shouted out, "Yes!" Who would have dreamed somebody would want to pay us $1,000 to sing? But this is 1995, and we had several good seasons under our belt, and the word was getting out. People were starting to know who we were.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think that was a big part of going out into the community and doing the caroling and the senior centers and growing our membership. People would see us and then want to come and hear us. And then of course,
to sing at the Adams birthday celebrations.
Right. In October and July, John Adams, Quincy Adams, the birthday celebrations at Church of the Presidents, who Sheldon Bennett was very instrumental in helping us get organized and present ourselves there. So anyway, we were starting out at East Congregational Church, and as you said, Mary, the numbers grew. Good people attracted good people, came to the group, and we had to find a larger venue. So we did a couple of concerts at Eastern Nazarene College at Cove Auditorium, one in particular kind of stood out, and it stands out in my memory, is that we had Paul Benzequin being the narrator of "'Twas the Night Before Christmas," and our two children, Jared and Joanna, were seated at the lap of Paul Benzequin as he narrated the story. After the concert was over, we came home and we got a telephone call while we're sitting down to dinner. Picked up the receiver and somebody said, "Mr. Nichols?" I said, "Yes." And the voice at the other end said, "This is Sherm Feller." And I said, "Well, who could not recognize the voice of Sherm Feller?" I said, "How are you, Mr. Feller?" He says, "I'm fine, thank you." And for those of you who might be a little bit younger than we are, Sherm Feller used to be the voice of the Red Sox at Fenway Park. "Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to Fenway Park." And he was also a very quite talented amateur composer. He wrote that famous song, "Summertime, Summertime, 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 Summertime." And the song that we sang that night at the Christmas concert with Paul Benzequin, besides "'Twas the Night Before Christmas," was called "Snow, Snow, Beautiful Snow," which he composed. And he called to congratulate me and thank me for singing his song. And he got me interested in some other music that he had written. Unfortunately, though, he died before we were able to perform any of it. But that was quite a night, the concert at Eastern Nazarene Cove Auditorium. After there, we moved to Church of the Presidents, and I did several concerts there. In 1995, Sacred Heart Church. We found a wonderful home there for the next 20 years. We did most of our orchestral concerts at Sacred Heart Church. And in my final season with QCS, we moved to the new Central Middle School in Quincy and did two concerts there.
Amazing to think how we just continue to outgrow one venue after the next.
And now I understand we're over at St. Mary's in Milton.
Yes.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Hopefully, when all this is over, this pandemic, Dura Flae Requiem will be on tap for May at St. Mary's. It's quite
Quincy's in the throes of building a performance center. It's supposed to be somewhere near Quincy Center, behind the T. That's supposed to be coming up in some years. Yeah.
Wow, that's been something the community has really lacked, and
right.
Would be a big boost to us. I came across a photograph recently from the old days, and was looking at a lot of the people there, and I noticed when you first were conducting the chorus, we had a phenomenal pianist, Carla, who has we've spoken and had an interview with her and had some of her thoughts, and she was really quite extraordinary. And I can remember when she announced that she was leaving to pursue a higher education, thinking, well, what are we going to do now? What are we going?
How can we ever replace Carla?
Exactly, right? Exactly. So tell us how you did manage to do that.
Well, we put advertisements. Say again, Joyce?
You remember building the harpsichord?
Oh yeah, I remember that story. Yeah. We put advertisements, notices in the newspapers, spread the word of mouth in the churches, and we set aside a Saturday afternoon from 2 o'clock to 5 o'clock, and we had about, I remember 6 or 7 candidates come in. I would have them play scales and arpeggios and do some sight reading, play a piece of their choice, maybe try to do some transpositions of pieces, and we really didn't. Martha and I didn't really find anybody who was really somebody we were anxious to hire. We would have had to settle for somebody. And at about 4:30, we're getting ready to pack up and leave, and knock comes at the door. "Come on in." And this young lady says, "Hi, I'm Gingy Grimes. I'm here to audition." So we said, "Well, hello, Gingy," or "Hello, Mrs. Grimes." She says, "Oh no, call me Gingy. I'm Gingy." And, we went to the piano, and I asked her to play a couple of arpeggios, some scales, which she ripped right off. I said, "Can you transpose?" "Oh, sure. What key would you like me to play in?" I would say, "Transpose it from C major to A flat minor." "Oh, okay, I can do that." And she did that. And then I said, "Was there any kind of piece that you would like to just play that you enjoy playing?" And previously to this, I had all the candidates audition with the Hallelujah Chorus, of which none of them were able to get through. So I asked Ginger, is there any piece that you would like to play for us here? She says, how about the Hallelujah Chorus? Would you like to hear that? And I said, oh, that would be fine. And she played it from measure one to the very end without any flaws, any mistakes. And after it was over, Martha and I looked at each other and nodded our heads. Yep, this is the one for us. And Gingy has been now, I think it'll be like 28 or 30 years now, because she joined in 92. So 1992 was her first year.
That's absolutely extraordinary.
And we could not have grown in musical excellence without her. I mean, she knew where I would want to go in rehearsal before I knew where I wanted it to go, which measure or which section needed help. And she was very subtle in her cues to either the tenors, the altos, or whatever section needed a little help along the way. So what a find getting Gingy. And not only did we get Gingy, but we got 3 for 1. We got Gingy, her husband Frank, who was a fine violist and actually went to Indiana University, where I went also for part of my education. And their son Brandon. Brandon turned out to be quite the performer. He's got a career in New York City right now as an actor and singer. But as he was growing up, he would sing with us, be soloist. And he wrote an amazing piece for his high school graduation at Milton High School called A Mass for a Dawning Age. 17-year-old who had never written for orchestra or chorus and came up with this most beautiful, beautiful mass. And we were very happy to perform that.
It was an extraordinary experience performing that. It was such a complex piece. And I just couldn't wrap my head around a high school young man with that kind of sight and ability, and clearly having Gingy and Frank as parents, it just in his blood. And what a great experience for all of us. And I can imagine as a conductor, you know, being able to take that and perform something like that for the first time premiere was.
Yeah, he arranged for all the solos. He took one of the solos, and then he hired 3 others, or not hired, but recommended, and I hired them. And it was a great concert.
I can still, going back to your children, I can still see the 2 of them in their pajamas with 'Twas the Night Before Christmas. And it's just, you know, the family aspect of the chorus has been so meaningful to me. I can remember being pregnant and missing 2 weeks of rehearsal and getting right back in there. And, you know, I think being around all that music, and you have a child growing inside you, and then that child becomes musical too. So you've had that with your 2, with Joanna and
Jared.
And Jared being on stage, performing with us, the flute. And I can remember Joanna playing the flute with us.
Yep, Jared did timpani.
Yes.
But
the kids all performing.
The children are our next generation. They're our next audience, our next performers. And I always encouraged them to perform with us. A lot of our members, the Ravelsons had children, the Whipples had children. We even had one concert at Sacred Heart School, one of our silent auctions. We actually had the Sacred Heart School choir sing a couple of numbers in our concert.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And that brought us a big. When did Uma Familia come into play? Because that's really such a big.
In 2007, to back up a little bit, one way of raising money in the old days was to have yard sales. Remember the QCS yard sales in the parking lot of East Congregation Church, and all that work for, you know, $400, maybe $500 if it was a good auction, yard sale.
I think we would be very excited if we cleared like $500. Imagine, it was so much work.
I said, hey guys, I think there's a better way we can probably use our musical talents to raise money. So we decided to have a silent auction. Try that at Church of the Presidents, and we did that for 3 years, and that was in 1995. And after that, again, we outgrew Church of the Presidents, so we went to Sacred Heart School, and had our silent auction / concerts there. This would have been our 20th year in 2020 had that concert come off. And one of the features of the silent auction is the chance to bid on conducting the Hallelujah Chorus at the end. And one year, our son Jared, who was about 15 at the time, he won the bid and conducted the Hallelujah Chorus. At the end, he turned around to the audience and he says, "That's not so hard." Thanks for showing up your dad.
Exactly. He learned from the best.
Yeah. So anyway, getting back to Uma Familia, in 2006, I went to a MENC conference, Music Educators National Conference in Phoenix, Arizona, where I met Sally Kay Albright, who's the wife of Jay Althouse. And she said, my husband has this new piece called Uma Familia. You might want to try it out with your chorus. So I brought it home from the convention, programmed it for the concert of 2007. And the concert was called Musical Passport. These were songs from all around the world. And this has definitely a, what do you call it, bossa nova beat, South American. It's in Portuguese. Uma Familia is Portuguese for one family. Not una, but uma. And the chorus really liked that. And the beat, the lyrics, we may live far apart, but we are one in the heart. Now, Uma Familia. Yeah, we can tear down a wall when we are standing tall. Uma Familia. The words are just so good in the tune. And we programmed it several times. And after a while, it's like just a habit to start rehearsal with it, to get everybody singing, warmed up, and in a good mood. And we would do a conga line around the rehearsal hall. With Uma. Remember that? And of course, I would dance. And everybody would laugh at me, but that's fine.
And show your socks.
Yeah, show my socks.
As we conga around.
Yeah, so that's how Uma Familia came about. Yeah.
Well, it's really stuck because that is, I feel like, the unofficial motto of QCS is Uma Familia.
Another way we built family, Jodi and I started having family QCS picnics at our house in Danvers every summer at the end of August to kind of get everybody back together and in the mood for singing again. And after that, we moved into a condo, so we couldn't host 100 people for a picnic anymore. So Fran and Bruce Ravelson have now been using their lovely house in Milton for the annual August QCS picnic. So I'm happy that tradition has continued. Another social thing about Uma Familia is that we started having cabaret nights in the dark of winter in February. We would hire a hall. We used the Common Market, Hajar's in Weymouth, the Fours in Quincy, and we would have a catered buffet meal, and people would get up and sing songs and display their talent and have a really good social evening in February. And very often it was around the time of Joyce's birthday, the first week of February.
Celebration,
yeah. So all those things, the picnic, the picnic, the socializing.
So much, yeah.
Actually, I think some of the tenors got to know who the altos were, and the basses got to know who some of the sopranos were. Every Monday night, you just sit there in your own section. You don't get to meet the other people in the chorus, and this is a great way to meet other people in the chorus.
I think singing seems to bond people. But there are choruses that are not so social. When John and I came to Maine, there was a chorus in Lewiston that we sang with for one season. And even though the chorus was good, they didn't seem very social at all. And it was because the conductor didn't encourage that. So I think because John really encouraged the chorus to socialize, I think that's why we became so close, because we all had a commonality, loving to sing, and then, being together socially just made it so wonderful. And it really was like, family and friends, everybody.
Right.
Yeah.
And of course, through the 28 years, we couldn't have done what we had done without this lovely lady next to me.
100%.
My alto buddy.
Yeah.
Yeah, my alto buddy.
Yeah.
You are my sunshine, my only sunshine. You make me happy when skies are gray. You'll never know, dear, how much I love you. Please don't take my sunshine away.
Oh, how sweet.
Aww. Well, we love you guys also, and we're going to take a break, and we're going to come right back and talk more about socializing, because I want to talk about trips, and then I want to talk about music.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Hello, everybody. We're back with John and Jodi for more fun QCS stories. I was really enjoying our trip down, talking about the kids and the social aspect and Uma Familia. And I think one of my big regrets with QCS is that it wasn't the right time in life for me. But you started something so special with the trips, the QCS trips. And can you just tell us, I can't remember how they started, but they sure did go places.
Well, both Jodi and I love to travel. We both were bitten at an early age, and we love to travel and sing when we travel. I proposed doing a trip in 1995, I think it was, up to Canada, and it didn't get a whole lot of positive response from the group, so I set it aside. And the following year, in 1996, I was the director at the New School of Music in Cambridge when I got a call in the fall from this lady with a British voice, British accent, and she says, can you tell me if you can recommend any venues in Cambridge? I have a choir from England coming over to perform. Any place in Boston or Cambridge where they would perform? And so I gave her a few ideas. And at that time I said, by the way, we're thinking of taking a trip to England. Would you be interested in being our tour director? And she says, well, of course I would. Where do you sing? I said, it's the Quincy Choral Society in Quincy, Massachusetts. Oh, that's very historical. She has a British accent, but she and her husband, Fred, lived in Pleasantville, New York. So she was here, and she was a British accent, former airline stewardess and or hostess. I'm sorry, and she was also a singer, which was very important for us because she knows both the travel ins and outs of the industry as well as the musical ins and outs of what singers need. So anyway, Quincy, Massachusetts. She goes, oh, Quincy, isn't that John Quincy and John Quincy Adams? I said, yes. She says, I think I can find out something interesting for you to hang a hook on the concert. So I'll get back to you. So she did get back to me, and I did my own little research and discovered that John Quincy Adams was married in London back in 17, no, so I'm doing my math wrong, 200 years ago at that time. 1797. There we go. All right. So we were going to go over and celebrate the marriage of John Quincy Adams to Louisa Catherine Johnson and sing at the same church where they got married. And Christine put that trip together. We sang at All Hallows in London. They had a little birthday cake there for us. Marvelous experience singing in London. We also did a concert in Greenwich. We met the mayor of Greenwich. And then our third concert, well, actually we did 4 concerts. We did a little small country church in Bramham. And then the final concert was in this magnificent manor house in North Yorkshire called Burton Agnes Hall. It was a black tie affair, and it was for charity. Everybody had to pony up X amount of pounds to hear us sing and have a buffet dinner. So we brought our American repertoire to England for them to enjoy. And one of the numbers on the program was the age of doo-wop. And I explained it to the audience as best I could. Here's our next number, doo-wop. And somebody in the front row, an elderly gentleman, leaned over to his wife and in a very loud whisper said to her, or asked her, "I say, dear, what is doo-wop?" This upper crust people had never heard of doo-wop before.
What an extraordinary experience for them and for the chorus.
Yeah.
Well, in Burton Agnes Hall, they had impressionistic original artwork on the walls, and we were allowed to, while we were doing our rehearsal there, and we took a break, they allowed us to look around, and it was amazing. I think they had a Renoir, and it was just
Monet
and Pizarro. They had more Pizarros, I think, than any other.
These are not copies; these are originals.
And very, very clearly, they were extremely wealthy. And I believe the fee that people paid was £50 per person.
Yeah.
And it was Action Research, which is sort of like the British version of United Way, and they were doing the charity for breast cancer research. The other thing was that at the All Hallows by the Tower, many, many of the people in the audience had been survivors of the London Blitz. And I think I developed so much more respect for the British, because so many of them survived the Blitz, and they just put one foot in front of the other, and as the Queen would say, keep calm and carry on, and that's what they did. And it was a really wonderful concert, and really so emotionally satisfying because of their level of appreciation.
So we were so pleased with Christine and how she had organized the tour that 2 years later, we went to France. 2 years after that, we were invited to participate in the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. So people were getting to know who we were. And we did a concert on the way up to Edinburgh at Bolton Castle for, again, a charity event. And this was the summer of 2001.
Mm-hmm.
As you all know, in September 11th, 2001, that was the tragedy that struck New York City, Washington, D.C., and Pennsylvania. And I received a very beautiful letter dated September 22nd from someone who had been at our concert at Bolton Castle. And the letter reads, "Dear Mr. Nichols, I write to you to express my horror and sympathy at what has taken place in New York, Washington, and the woods in Pennsylvania. I do hope that none of the choir have lost relatives or friends in those events. I will always treasure the memory of that wonderful concert that they gave in Bolton Castle. I look forward to meeting you all again. If things go right for me next year in the autumn, if any members of the choir have lost dear ones, please express my deepest sympathy to them. We must stand firm. Yours sincerely, John R. de Quincy. Quincy.
That's incredible.
It is.
I mean, so far-reaching. What a
beautiful.
Imagine, when we started out in East Congregational Church with, 35.
You never know how you're going to affect people with your music.
Yeah.
In the concert at Bolton Castle, Lord Harry Bolton actually contributed some of the food for the buffet. He has chickens. He made coronation chicken salad, which was a chicken salad that was sort of invented for Queen Elizabeth's coronation. And it's like a typical chicken salad with mayonnaise, but it has some curry in it. And I've made that ever since.
Yes.
And also one of the women who was organizing that concert, her name is Eunice Musgrave. She was hospice nurse in North Yorkshire. And she invited John and I and our children to tea a couple of days after the concert. Eunice and I have remained friends ever since. And at the time, I was a labor and delivery nurse, and I remember her saying, "You and I have a lot in common, Jodi. You hatch them, I dispatch them."
Classic British humor, huh?
He sends me jokey emails every day. And she was also a stewardess with what was called BOAC, British Overseas Airway Corporation, that then became British Air. And she had been married to an airline pilot, and I'm the daughter of an airline pilot. So we had very, very much in common. And she did a lot of volunteering with Action Research, and she also did a lot of volunteering with animal rescue. And she knew Lord Harry Bolton because he had given his facility to Action Research for numerous concerts, and Eunice coordinated them. And so Harry Bolton also was very charitable.
Amazing.
So that was our first real big overseas invite.
Imagine being invited, not even, you know, trying to make your way on your own, but to actually be extended an invitation like that is.
In 2007, we were invited to the, in St. Petersburg, to a festival. We were the only American choir there. And I've got it written down here and I can't find it. Oh, Voices of America. I can't remember the name of it.
What year was
that? But
it's
choirs from, huh?
What year was that?
2007. The Singing World, there it is. It's called The Singing World. Choirs from Japan, Australia, obviously Russia, Italy, all over the world. We were the only American choir invited to come. And, you know, the Europeans have a unique way of expressing their appreciation when they clap. We over here clap kind of randomly, but when they like something, they clap very rhythmically all together. And they start slow, and then they speed up. They just fell in love with our American music, our George Gershwin. It don't mean a thing if it ain't got that swing. And we did choreography with it and danced around the stage. They loved that. They loved that. Towards the end of the concert, though, Jodi's going to tell you a little story here about an incident with her taking one of the posters from the concert.
So this concert hall had a very large courtyard outdoors, and there was this big stone wall around it. And we were waiting for the other couple of choruses to finish their performance, and then all of the choruses were going to get on stage together and sing the last number together. And I think there would be about 450 of us. It was a very, very large venue. And all over the courtyard, there might have been 5 or 6 posters that had been put up announcing this festival. And of course it was Russian, but it was the last day. And when we all did that number together on stage, that was the finale. So what I did was I walked over and took down one of the posters and rolled it. It was my intent to bring it home. And this police officer, very young man, but very, very tall, came over to me and started screaming at me in Russian. And he was holding his hands out like this, you know, give me this poster. And, I unfortunately said to him in English, "You don't need those posters anymore. This festival is going to be over in 20 or 30 minutes.
And I'm saying, Jodi, give him the poster. Give him the poster.
Because he was afraid I'd end up going to the gulag. And so I handed over the poster to the police officer. But then this elderly woman, who I think was a volunteer usher, and he was very, very tall. He was about 6'3". She was about 4'8". She came over to him and started yelling at him, and he put his head down like this and closed his eyes. And I have no idea what she said to him in Russian, but I have a feeling she said, "I'm going to tell your mother that you were rude to these Americans, and these Americans have been so welcomed here." And so he then handed the poster over to her. She came over to me, handed the poster to me, and then kissed my cheek. So I did not go to the gulag.
Oh my gosh. That must have been scary.
It was.
It was a little scary.
Little tense there.
But
And do you still have the poster?
It was very, very obvious that we were so well received in Russia. And I think a lot of us had doubts about it at the time because was it Boris Yeltsin that was president? And George W. Bush was president, and they weren't getting along very well. John and I took a private tour to go to
St. Catherine's?
It was, I forget, it was
Catherine's Palace.
Catherine's Palace.
Yeah.
And the driver didn't speak English, but the tour guide was a young woman with a degree in art history, and she spoke both English and Russian. And we were leaving Catherine's Palace and driving back to the hotel, she said to me, "Is it okay if I ask you 2 questions about Americans?" I said, "Sure." She said, "Does everyone think President Bush is stupid?" I said, "I'm really not sure about that." And she said, "My next question, are most Americans fat?" And,
those are 2 pretty funny questions.
Yes. And I had said to her, I don't think everyone thinks President Bush is stupid. And although some Americans are overweight, not all Americans are overweight. But it was a fantastic tour. And St. Petersburg had beautiful architecture. And
Paris of the North.
The Choral Festival was just so fantastic.
What an incredible opportunity. I mean, like I said earlier, biggest regret of my life, but I had a a newborn, and then she was just very young during all of these traveling days. But I mean, for all the other chorus members to have a chance to go to St. Petersburg, Russia, and have that sort of welcoming and beautiful experience. I mean, what a rare opportunity.
People to people, not government to government.
Right.
And before we went to St. Petersburg, we were in Helsinki, Finland. And we usually, the first night we were at a new venue, we would have dinner together as a group. And I remember I was upstairs getting dressed, and John was ready, and he said, I want to go downstairs and maybe get a beer. Do you want me to get you a glass of wine? I said, sure, I'll be down in a few minutes. So about 10 minutes later, I came down. He handed me this glass of, it was like a white Bordeaux. He said, I can tell you, honey, this glass of wine cost about $26.
Ooh,
I said, well, I'm not drinking again in Finland. And it turned out that Finland has very, very high tax rates on alcohol. So people in Finland that like to drink a lot of alcohol and even like to smoke a lot of cigarettes take a train into St. Petersburg, where you can buy a gallon of vodka for about €3 or something. And they would take this big suitcase there and come back. But the Finland was also quite lovely.
Wow.
Join QCS and see the world.
Right, right.
We,
mean,
I think
so
the only
rare.
country in Europe, we did not perform in Spain or Portugal, but Italy, France, Germany, Austria,
Czech Republic.
Czech Republic, yes.
The Czech Republic was fabulous.
Ireland, England, Wales.
Yeah.
We just had great trips. St. Mark's in Venice was very interesting because there, the organ was up in a choir loft way, way above the altar. And we were seated around the altar. We could not see Gingy at all. Oh. So Frank had to be an intermediator conductor up on the balcony. He would look at me, and then Gingy could look at Frank. And that's how we got through that that performance at St. Mark's Cathedral in Venice. Another memorable concert was in France at Chartres Cathedral. We sang there.
Excuse me.
Also in Austria, in Baden, we sang in the church, in the choir loft, where Mozart had composed Ave Verum.
Oh.
Ave, Ave. So I'm standing with Mozart was good, and Gingy was playing the organ that Mozart would have performed on. So that was quite inspirational. Wow. As well as our concert in St. Gilgen, Austria. It was organized with members of the Mozarteum. We had 3 soloists who sang opera. We had 3 or 4 instrumentalists, and the whole concert was narrated by a professor from the Mozarteum. And we performed in the church where Nannerl, Mozart's sister, usually went to church. She did not live in Salzburg. She lived in St. Gilgen. And that was quite a emotional and spiritual and fun trip there.
I think singing Ave Verum was especially emotional for us because John and I got married at St. John's Episcopal Church in Duxbury, Massachusetts, where John was the church choir director. And the church choir sung at our wedding, and they sung Ave Verum. And so every time I sing it, again, it's very emotional. It reminds us of our wedding. And that was probably one of the highlights of my life as a choral singer, was singing there. And also St. Gilgen, Austria, we have returned there again because it's just so beautiful. And it's a lovely country. And we went to Germany and Austria, and we had a fantastic vacation when we went last time.
Wow.
And the Pope did his first river cruises also.
Oh, right. That was another great thing. We went down the Elbe. We left Germany and ended up in the Czech Republic. And that concert that we did at the castle in Prague, I can't remember the name of the castle.
Lobkowitz.
Lobkowitz Palace. The Lobkowitz family was blatantly anti-Nazi, and they were very, very wealthy and had castles in a few different European countries. I think Switzerland, Czech Republic, Germany, and the Nazis stole the artwork from Lobkowitz Palace in Prague. And they had a celebration because the last piece of artwork that had been stolen was now recovered and restored. So they had a celebratory concert, and we debuted a number there that they had a contest, a composer contest. And the guy that won the contest was a Yale student, but he was from Brookline, Massachusetts. And we were able to debut that number. And that was, again, another very moving thing.
It was a song dedicated to the victims of Terezin concentration camp, which we visited also.
And going to Terezin was an incredible experience.
Talking about the stones.
It felt like people just left there. And interestingly, at the time I was a nurse with the Visiting Nurse Association of Boston, and one of my coworkers, her name's Anna, she's married to a man who was Czechoslovakian because he ended up escaping Czechoslovakia. And I had mentioned we were going to go to the Czech Republic and we were going to go to Terezin. And she said, well, Jodi, I want to give you a helpful thing to do when you go to Terezin. When you're in Prague, make sure that you pick up a pebble or a stone in Prague and put it in your pocket. And I said, why? She said, you'll find out when you get there. So there's a tradition in Judaism that if you visit a grave, you put a stone on the grave. And coming out of Terezin, across the street in sort of like a common area was a cemetery where many of the Holocaust victims were buried. And there wasn't a single pebble in that town, even in the grass, because they had all been taken by tourists and put on the graves. So I'm really glad my friend Anna told me, because I went over to one of the graves and said a prayer and put the stone there. And there was a spiritual feeling there. It felt like people had just left. And it was very, very moving.
Wow. Extraordinary experiences. And really, it's so interesting to hear too, like how the different music affected, for the Ave Verum, that performance, and how that was such a personal connection for you. I think there were so many pieces that we performed over the years that were were so extraordinary, and we were so blessed to have you so connected to bring in soloists and just pieces that you had, you know, I remember that you had studied with John Rutter, for instance, and how many beautiful, I mean, Rutter's one of my favorites. So Absolutely. It was like, you know, let's pull out that Magnificat, or so many pieces that he did. And it was extraordinary, John, that you had personal connections, and, you know, that led you to put these really amazing pieces together for shows, you know, for the audiences to really understand. And one of the things that I've enjoyed sort of reviewing, thinking about all the past and looking into some old programs and things, was your program notes. Your program notes were so interesting, and so they just really captured, it was so much more meaningful to read some background, either of the composer or the piece, or how or when the time frame that it was written in, where it was performed. You know, Jodi, like you mentioned, Gingy's playing on the same organ, you know, that Mozart played on. It's just like those sorts of pieces of information that you would share in the program notes, I thought just were such a great addition, you know, to read about certain, you know, Robert Honeysucker or Barbara Quintiliani, like where they came from, and how that just brought it to be so much more interesting to somebody like me who doesn't have a big musical background. I just enjoy it.
One very interesting piece that Elaine Matisoff put me onto was called the Yizkor Requiem. And it was a piece that combined both Jewish and Christian liturgy. And we did the Boston premiere of that. Composed by Thomas Beveridge. It's very poignant. At the end, the solo flutist, Betsy Mihalchik, she goes down the center aisle of Sacred Heart and plays this recurring 5-note motif, as if the spirits are ascending from earth.
I completely have the chills right now, like right through my body, because I can hear it, feel it.
Yeah. Another good piece that I remember was Kathy Reddy, who was a member of QCS and is quite a talented writer and composer. She wrote a piece called Simplify the Season, and I orchestrated it, and we won a semi-finalist prize at the American Prize Competition. And I think you guys are still singing that, maybe, Simplify the Season?
No, we haven't sung it in a long time. Hats
off to Kathy for a wonderful, wonderful piece that she wrote.
Yeah, and she was just a member of our chorus again, so it just kind of speaks to the kind of people that you drew in over the years.
But anything by Dvorak or Mozart, we did the Mozart Requiem 3 times. Love it, love it. Like you mentioned, Rutter, one of our favorites also.
We got Requiem in New York City.
We got pretty well known because we were also invited to sing at the Memorial Day Festival in New York, in Washington, D.C. at the Kennedy Center. And there's a wonderful group photo on the roof of the Kennedy Center of QCS that I still have. And then after that, the year after that, we got invited to sing at Carnegie Hall, the Mozart Requiem. So join QCS, see the world, see the United States, sing in some good venues. I'm very proud of all those accomplishments, but none of it would have been possible without a lot of other people chipping in to help us. You need supporters. You can't do it just by yourself. We mentioned Sheldon Bennett before, Mayor Sheets, Mayor Koch, Father Heary, Father O'Brien at Sacred Heart. Mark Whipple was our audio engineer for many, many years, who made tapes and CDs. And then Brian Kelly took over the video of our concerts and posted them on YouTube, again, getting us out into the world. Laurie McIntosh created our webpage. We never had a website until she did that for us. And in fact, the picture on the QCS webpage is us at Carnegie Hall. A lot of photography help from Jim Hines, John Peruzzi, Frank Pareto, Dottie Nelson. Who am I leaving out here? Oh, at the Quincy Arts Council, they gave us funding for many years. Patriot Ledger, as Janet had mentioned in the other interview, one of the editors of the Patriot Ledger happened to be in Edinburgh the same time we were giving our concert and gave us a wonderful, wonderful review of that concert. Mm-hmm. Quincy's son always was helpful for us. Yeah. Joe Catalano at Quincy Access TV. I did many interviews with Joe, and he would publicize our concerts. So it's not a one-man band. It took a lot of different people, and it's still taking people. The board of directors, Joyce and Vicky and Cindy and all the people, Gordon, who give their time freely to help the chorus. It's a group effort. It really is.
It's a labor of love, for sure.
Yes.
We love it.
Absolutely. Yeah. So many, just so much warmth. It just makes me happy inside to see you guys, to talk to you, to, you know, think about some of that stuff. And I might have to go dig out some Mark Whipple's cassette tapes and find some way to play them. I was cleaning out my basement and found a cassette tape of Missa Solemnis, and I thought to myself, I would love to get a listen to that.
Yeah.
With you know, not a lot of members, and you managed to really, you know, rehearse us into a great place.
Mary, did you have that review there? I forget.
Oh yeah, I do. I had this is a little something that I came across. This was a review in the Patriot Ledger, May of '96. And at that point, we had 70 members, according to the article. Music director John Nichols, a meticulous conductor capable of evoking, I'm sorry, that you weren't cooking, you were evoking, exquisite choral sounds from his singers. The results of his high standards and the chorus members' dedication were to be heard Sunday. The Brahms German Requiem. The music was driven by a probing intellect, a sense of nobility, and a controlled passion of rare intensity. The music's impulses not only took on the combination of drama, dreaminess, and mystery that is the Requiem's essence, but also the occasional moments of tremendous, I can't read what that says, sonoros impact, served to enhance further the work's lyrics, breadth, and inner serenity.
Wow. Hey, I'm not just a pretty face, you know.
We were, you know, and 96, well, we were up to 70 members, so I think you had doubled us in size at that point. But boy, oh boy, I had a baby 3 months before that concert, and there was no way in heck I was going to miss performing. I think I missed one rehearsal and was like not missing the Requiem. It was extraordinary. And, you know, that kind of publicity helped, you know, push us along and, you know, get us invitations to perform in you know, all across the world internationally. It's extraordinary.
I think QCS has affected me emotionally in all of my life experiences. Our daughter Joanna went to Oxford in England for her 3rd year of undergrad. Oxford is like the Harvard of England. And she went to Wadham College, and I went over there with her for the first 2 weeks to get her settled. And then once she was settled, I drove up to Yorkshire to visit my friend Eunice Musgrave for a few days. And I had taken a couple of CDs with me, and one of them was the Quincy Choral CD that did the Dvorak program. And I was driving through the city of York, came out of the city and looked, you could see the windshield, the beautiful hills of Yorkshire, and it was gorgeous. And on came Dvorak's Kyrie, and it made me weep. It was so beautiful.
Wow.
And again, that influence of, I love Dvorak so much, and having that influence, you know, I remember, Joyce, there were times that you told me that John loved a piece, your husband John, not this John, but your husband loved a piece so much it made him weep. I understand that because Dvorak has a tendency to do that. Mozart very often does too.
And that to me.
The Mozart Requiem in C minor, Jacqueline Kennedy chose that for JFK's funeral. And I remember hearing it for the first time, watching the funeral on television, and it's become one of my favorite pieces, and it's something I can't perform without getting close to tears.
Definitely.
All right, before we all get weepy now. Really, such great memories. It's just, oh, I love the, just Uma Familia. It's not, it's real. It's real. The friendships and the,
Not a cliche. It's not a cliche.
It's not a cliche at all. And yeah, so many friendships and so many great memories.
Right.
Yeah.
40 years, and let's make them 40 more.
That would be great.
Let's do it. Let's all meet up on a river cruise somewhere in Europe.
Love that.
Sing our way down.
Well, I have a little something I would like to sing for you as we leave this interview. Is that okay, Mary?
That would be absolutely fantastic.
And I think you might recognize the tune, actually.
Aww. Well, thank you. We appreciate that. And it's great to see you guys both. Really, we missed you so much. You're up there living the life. What are you doing now before you give us a little interlude out? Tell us what you're up to these days up and you've retired to Maine. Jodi, you're still working, right?
I still work per diem as a case manager. I've changed my position. I worked for Partners Healthcare, which is Mass General, Brigham and Women's. I worked for them and love Partners. And there's a hospital in Dover, New Hampshire. It's about an hour and 5 minutes from here called Wentworth Douglas. And that is a Partners facility. And I work there, maybe only about once a week, but it's, again, a fantastic hospital because it's Partners and it's a small community hospital. I think there's only about 125 or 30 beds, but very, very fantastic. And the great thing is if somebody needs to go to a higher level of care, it's a guarantee that they'll either go to MGH, which we call Man's Greatest Hospital, or Brigham and Women's. So it's a really wonderful place to work, and I find it very gratifying.
And we both sing in choral art. It's one of the premier courses here in Portland, and we perform by ourselves and also with the Portland Symphony.
Oh, good.
We're both fans of DIY, or DIY, which one is it?
DIY.
DIY.
I had to say it to myself in my head.
Property Brothers and Flipper Flop and all those shows. So we figured we can do that. So we bought a house in Bath. First year we moved up here, we did a flip on that house. Yeah. Almost broke our bodies and said there must be an easier way to make money out of this real estate market. So we're now real estate landlords. We have 4 rental properties in the Lewiston, Auburn area. Nice. And we have a manager that. So we're into real estate investing and singing, and I have we have 6 chickens I take care of.
Mm-hmm.
He's the chicken whisperer.
I love it.
We decided we needed to name the chickens, so we called them Lucy and Ethel, Laverne and Shirley, and 2 characters from one of my favorite musicals, Chicago, Velma and Roxy.
Oh,
but a few years ago, John said to me, he pointed to a particular chicken and he said, honey, we need to change that chicken's name. I said, to what? He said, Michelle. I said, why? He said, because she keeps squawking, Barack, Barack. I thought he might be a stand-up comic.
He has a second career coming in comedy. Well, it sounds like you guys are really busy. It's I'm really happy to hear that you guys are still singing and performing. And
yeah, well, the chickens see him and they go running toward him because he's the food source.
We did a driveway concert at the end of August. We had invited our neighbors over. Jodi sang, I did keyboards, and we had a driveway concert for everybody.
That must have been great.
Yeah,
everybody loved it.
Yeah.
Well, you guys are great. I hope you'll consider maybe sharing a little holiday cheer with us later.
That would be nice.
That would be great. Yeah, yeah. We miss you both. All right. I'm anxious to hear what this little surprise tune is now.
We have traveled sea and mountain, different pathways we have roamed. Now it's time, my friend, for this interview to end. Please stay safe at home.
Thank you so much. We love and miss you.
Lovely.
You love and
Stay
miss you.
well. Bye-bye. Love you.